And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I am your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing husband and co host,
Stephen Frederick.
Stephen the Medium, is in the house. And today, Stephen, we also, yet again, are going to have an amazing conversation. We get a lot of feedback that people just love you and I chatting and engaging in conversation. So we're giving you more of what you said you want. So today we're going to talk about the neuroscience of trust, how to build or rebuild relationships. And I think this is an important conversation because, as you know, trust is the foundation of every great relationship. And neuroscience is my wheelhouse, and it shows you understanding the neuroscience behind how it is that when we feel safe, we feel respected, we feel connected, our brains release a certain chemical that we call the trust hormone, and then that opens us to creativity, collaboration, love. And trust really makes us willing to take risk with others, but at the same time, Stephen, it also makes us fragile and taking years to build, and often moments to break. And that's why today's conversation really matters. So if this is something that calls to you, stay tuned because you're going to learn a whole lot about trust and how to build those relationships that have been damaged by loss of trust, or how to rebuild them if you have one of those relationships that you've lost, if you're interested in rebuilding, that is, because not everyone has that interest, and that is okay. So Stephen, that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, of course we need to check in. How you doing? And
Give the people what they want. You didn't come up for a breath of air for a second. I thought you were going to do the whole show. You just kept going and going and going and
well,
going.
I learned from you. I mean,
Really?
seriously, yes,
Seriously? All
yes,
right.
seriously. So now I've opened it up. Well, first of all, how do you think? Do you think this is an awesome subject?
I, I do see my statement, give the people what they want, is lost because that comment about people, comment about they love the conversations between the two of us was so long ago. No one even knows what I'm saying. So just saying. But
That's
yes,
not
to answer
true.
your question, yes, I do. Of course. I mean, trust is such a key factor, a key component of just life.
Yes, every part of life.
Yes.
So now let's give people what they want. So what's going on? What are you up to? What should we be telling people about life, etc.?
All right, let me start with this. I'm working
Okay.
out, I'm huge. That's where I'm going to start.
Yeah, we that I knew you were gonna go there. So tell people what that means, and if you're a Seinfeld fan, you probably know where that comes from. So go
Oh, you
ahead,
do. If you're
Stephen.
listen, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know exactly where that statement comes from, verbatim. I'm working out. I'm huge. In any case, yes, hell froze over. I joined a gym. So that was a biggie for me. I'm
Yes.
someone who just has never been a kind of group kind of person. I would rather do things by myself. And that's why, my first and most passionate thing for me is running. And running, I run alone, right? So this morning I was running in the cranberry bogs with just the wild animals and the trees, and it's just me. And I love it. But I have been thinking about the rest of my body because running is amazing. My legs are amazing. And when you're running, you do get to clearly you move the top of your body, but it's not really, it's not getting that. I mean that sort of strength training that your legs are getting. So that's why I ultimately decided to just start inquiring about a place. So I Googled, found this place in Bourne, in the town we live in, and I looked at the website and thought maybe I would take a shot at it. Sent a message to the owner, and we went back and forth. And I started Wednesday, and went Wednesday and Thursday. Didn't go today. And let me just tell you something that I almost this morning asked you to come into the bathroom to blow dry my hair, but I knew if you did, I would look like Farrah Fawcett from Charlie's Angels, because my arms were not just staying above my head, because I feel like my arms have been removed and reattached, and I'm trying to figure them out. That's how. That's what's going on with my muscles that I didn't even know I had in such a great way. Honestly, this place is phenomenal. The people there, well, people, I work out with either 2 or 3 other women, which I love. I said to them when I walked in, this is just like high school. I'm with all the women. And they all laughed, and, it's great. Seriously, it's great. Chris is amazing. She walks me through things. I told her I've never been in a gym, and she's got the best sense of humor. I honestly, 2 days, and I love her, and this place is terrific. So
The last couple of nights, I go to bed. We go, Stephen and I go to sleep like together, and in late last couple of nights, I just go to the bedroom. And Steven is already under the sheets, and it's like, I'm so tired, I can't move. He is, he's definitely feeling the muscled awakeness. Let's call it that way.
yeah,
But listen,
there's no question.
Can you acknowledge publicly now that we're here that what they told you about doing legs and why that is important when you're a runner? Because you yelled at me.
No, but she told me I have nice legs. Is that what you mean? You love how I just threw that in? She did.
Yeah, well, you do. I mean, running.
Yeah, listen,
of course.
I don't think. I think because of the public station that we're on, I don't think I can. I'll check with Jim, the manager, but I don't think I can say the place. That's why I'm very hesitant to say it, even though I want to. But I don't think I can. But I'll find out. If I can, I will. So we were at dinner a couple of weeks, last week or so, I think it was, and we were having this discussion with 2 people, 2 very, very good friends of ours, John and Christmas or Krista, and both of them are just in such an amazing shape. And Krista is a former bodybuilder, so I was asking her about the whole gym thing and trying to get some info on it. And as we were talking, Elix said to Krista and John about me doing also legs would be good. And of course, I jumped at him saying, I don't need legs. What do I need legs for? I run all the time. My legs
he was
are good.
not. He didn't say it that nicely, people. He snapped at me, but that's okay. I went with it.
So, well, in my head, so then I get to this place, and Chris, who is the owner, just says to me, "Oh my God, Stephen, we'll do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday," and she tells me what Tuesday and Thursday are, and Wednesday will be the in between day and you'll do legs. And before I even have a second to say anything, she said, and it's really, really necessary for you to do legs because you're a runner, and it's just going to make your running so much better. You're going to be shocked.
Exactly what I said during dinner. That's exactly what I said. But go ahead. When she said it, you were like, "Oh,
Are you done? Seriously, are you done?" So I did. I said to her, "Really?" And so she went through a little bit more of a conversation, and I not only told her, but I did tell you, Elix, when I got home. I apologized and said, I didn't know this, and you were right. So that's how it all ended up. So, but I think everybody listening should focus on her saying, "Stephen, you have nice legs."
Yes. This is now forever recorded. Stephen saying you were right. I'm gonna just highlight that in the recording of this live radio show.
God, dear God.
By the way, Stephen, so our friend Jack, it's listening finally. At least from the beginning, not like halfway through the show as he's done previously.
It depends on his mood whether he likes us or not. I
Yeah.
think that's what it is.
Hmm.
But we love him always.
But he's coming. You'll get it. It's go time. Easy. Mandelbaum. 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 Mandelbaum.
Of course, I get this. That's
Yes.
a wonderful Seinfeld reference. So, besides me and John, anybody else that are Seinfeld fans will absolutely get that.
Yeah. And if you are listening on the live feed, hello to all of you. I know my cousin Noel is listening. Jack, of course. Carrie Newman just joined. So welcome and thank you for joining the conversation. So what else is going on, Stephen? Today we are celebrating a friend's birthday, Michelle.
Happy
And we're gonna
birthday!
go out to dinner with our friends. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, yeah. You know what I love too is that people are thinking Jack and John are two different people. I reference him as John, and you're referencing him as Jack. But I think that just it works for him, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sort of
Actually,
like very secretive identity, and
sure. I call him Jonathan,
I call him
Jack.
John John.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
just
don't
yeah,
don't say that whole thing because he
I just
gets
said
very
John,
upset about that.
John. Well, let me just also on a side note, just give a shout out to one of my best friends, Croaks, as we call her, Susie. I talked to her today earlier, and she always listens to the show. So big love and hug to Susie. And even though we all call her Croaks, her nickname is Croaks. How did that come about? Because years ago, I'm talking years ago, I met her through my other best friend, Paul, back when we were in high school. In any case, we started calling Susan Susie Croquettes. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden, we just dropped the Susie, and we sort of out of the croquettes, we just sort of dropped the cats and kept Croaks, and she's Croaks. It's weird, huh?
And by the way, if you're thinking, oh my God, how does he come up with any of these stories? The stories are ongoing. They're unlimited. Seriously, this is not one of a kind. He's got a selection of stories just like this one. That's why having a conversation with Steven, it's never a dull conversation ever.
Well, listen, Elix, before we go on break, let me just say that in the past several weeks, I've been doing a lot of private groups. Last Sunday, shout out to Erica. She was amazing. She hosted this at
That
this
was pretty
beautiful,
awesome.
beautiful
Yes.
home. And the people that she got were amazing. And then this Sunday, I'm doing another one, but on the Cape, though, which is really nice because it's much, much closer. So I got to tell you, I love doing private home events because everybody gets read. It's a minimum of 10 people up to 15, but you're not going to a venue that you're crossing your fingers whether you're going to get read. You actually get read when I come to your place, and it's a lot of fun. It's always such a good group of people, and you always come and get
Yeah.
to experience it.
You get two for the price of one. So
Yes.
I'm the sidekick, I'm the help, but I'm always there. But anyways, we do need to take a commercial break. So let's do that. And when we come back, we are going to dive in this amazing conversation today. The neuroscience of trust, how to build or rebuild relationships. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing husband and co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, is in the house. And today we are talking about one of the most important foundations in human connection, the neuroscience of trust, how to build or rebuild relationships. As I said earlier, trust is really what makes us feel safe, connected, and willing to take risk with others. It is what allows us to share openly, to collaborate, and to love fully. And neuroscience, which is my wheelhouse, shows us that when we experience trust, our brain produces oxytocin, which we call the trust hormone, and quiets that fear based center of the brain, making us more open to possibility. Yet, here's the challenge. Trust is also fragile. It takes it can take years to build and only a moment to break. And today we're going to dive into what science tells us about how to build trust, how trust works, and why it does matter, and what tools we can all use to build and rebuild trust in our relationships, whether they're personal or professional. So, this is an opportunity for you to join our conversation. If you're on the live feed, you can put your questions on the live feed. If you like to call us, 508 222 1320. The lines are always open for you to share your thoughts and questions with us. And here's where I want to start, Stephen. It's a question for everyone, including the two of us. Where in your life are you being invited to build or rebuild trust right now? Think about that. That's for all of you listening. Where in your life are you being invited to build trust or rebuild trust right now? So, Stephen, I think this is a conversation that's important for everyone. And you and I, you know, I call it we're in the game. We're here. We're also in the space where we know how important trust is for ourselves. So, what 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 would you like to add to this conversation right now, Stephen?
Like many of these conversations that we have in different subject matters, I think I always start from the individual, like the internally, right? Because when I found out the subject matter was going to be trust, based on what I do as a medium and have this business, and I teach courses. I can't even tell you how many courses I have taught. One starting, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so. And one of the things that I am constantly telling the students is, we talk about the subject of trust, right? But trust in the sense of trusting yourself, like in the mediumship sense, is trusting yourself that you're getting these signs. And like, because when we get through all these different subject matters in the mediumship and psychic world, it comes down to a common question from people, from my students, saying, how can you tell if it's just your little voice or it's actually a message from somebody, like you're hearing somebody who's in spirit or somebody who's crossed, and we go through that whole conversation. But at the end of the day, the subject always falls back into, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you're actually, like, what you're hearing. If you think it is a message or feeling or dream, whatever it is, you have to trust that it is. But even before that, you have to trust in yourself, right? You have to trust that you know who you are, you know what you feel, what you see, what you hear, all of that kind of stuff, and just trust that whatever you're getting is the real thing. So I think it just comes back to, internally, you have to trust yourself. And your question that you just asked, for me to answer it, is really what I'm being invited to is everything that falls under the definition of trust, but just solely connected to me. It's my personality using that word trust with my soul. That's where I am right now. I think that's where we all are always, but I think it's highlighted sometimes, and sometimes we're oblivious to it. We have no idea it's happening, but that's where I'm at. It's when you're in a growing and learning stage, which that's really why we're here. That's when you really can see that things start internally first. So the trust is not even me trusting anybody else. It's just, am I good with me? Like, am I trusting myself? Am I solid with myself? And then once that is taken care of, then I start venturing out in it. But I'm venturing out in such a beautiful place.
Yeah, I honestly, Stephen, I am so glad that you explained your position in such a clear and beautiful way, because when I thought about this question, where in my life am I being invited to build or rebuild trust right now? That's exactly where I went. I went to myself. Because I think we're so conditioned as human beings, when we're asked this question, we're always conditioned to look outside, outside of ourselves, right? When we think about building or rebuilding trust, we think about the trust that when somebody else does something and it breaks trust, right? And we lose trust. But when you look through that lens, for me anyways, you sort of look through the lens of assigning accountability outside of yourself. And for me anyways, doing so, it's almost like giving my power away, right? Which leaves me powerless, which makes me a victim of whatever the circumstances are. So I love that you talked about like looking at oneself and how it is that I need to build trust or rebuild trust with me first and foremost. Now, that's not to say that when we're experiencing breakdowns, and we all do, that's part of our humanness, that that our brain doesn't immediately, our brain, by the way, it's hardwired to go into that fear space, the fear mode, excuse me. Something happens and you go into that state of fight, flee, protect, defend, because that's how we've been hardwired to respond. But I think there is so much more power to just simply look at us internally and ask ourselves, what do I need to do to regain, to rebuild, and to hold on to that self? I'm gonna call it self trust. Does that make sense, Stephen? What can you add to
Yeah,
this?
I mean, of course, you're, explaining that also very concisely, and it certainly makes sense. And if someone was to ask, "But how do I know? Am I trusting my soul? Like if I'm trusting myself?" And I talk about the personality and soul as two different. We're made up of two different things. Our personality, what you look at in the mirror, that's your personality, the shell that's going to die at some point, and then you have the soul, which is infinite and just keeps going on. And if you're not sure, am I trusting? I think I am. It always comes down to an easy way to know whether you're trusting your soul is, are you living an authentic life? And so a very simple way for me to give like an analogy, or whatever it is as a extremely handsome gay guy. I'm not going to say anything.
That would be, are you talking about me?
If I was to, walking to a room and keep hidden who I am. And now I don't mean that you walk into a room and you have to start like with pom poms, like doing some kind of cheer, like we're here, we're queer. I don't mean that. I just mean it in a normal conversation, just like if a straight person would do, talk about their boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, kids, whatever the case. When you get to that place, and you really know, like you can try to pretend and make excuses. Like the great excuse is in my community many times is it's my life. It's private. It's personal. I'm not giving that out. Yeah, that's an excuse. I'm just saying it's an excuse. But if you were to walk into a room and you're not like, are you married? Did you have a girlfriend? And you're not actually forthcoming with who you are and just being who you are, being authentic, then you don't trust your soul, right? Because you're not living authentically. That's the trust and authenticity go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. And if you don't have that authenticity, then trust has nothing to attach to. And then most likely you're living externally and it's just not going to be what it could be, right? Your life could be good. It's not going to be phenomenal if that's where you are, because that's what we're also here to live authentically. That's the most, I think it's one of the most important things.
And that actually reminds me of part of the conversation we had last week. Ego, right? When there's fear, that is a tell sign that ego is present.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in the conversation, whether it's in, in how you're responding, how you're behaving. I would invite all of you listening that when you give power to your soul, as Stephen just said, that leads to trust. That is going to create that opening for trust to emerge. Really wonderful, Stephen. That actually that came from you. I'm just reframing it because I heard it perhaps even in a more clear way today. So we do have to take a small commercial break. So as we step into the break, I want all of you. I'm inviting all of you to reflect on this. Who is one person in your life who you feel complete trust with, and what makes that possible? Think about that. Who is one person in your life who you feel complete trust with, and what makes that possible? We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Attorney Masick.
who is also my amazing husband. And today's conversation is really an important conversation for all of us. Is a conversation about the neuroscience of trust, how to build or rebuild relationships. And trust is a foundation for all meaningful relationships, whether they're personal or professionals. And with that in mind, our friend John Jack on the live stream, he said, Stephen, he recently switched jobs and is in the process of building trust at work. So this conversation, so he's talking about building trust from a professional perspective. But Stephen, would everything we've talked about, would that apply to him as well?
Well, I think, yeah, of course. I don't think it really matters where the atmosphere is, if you will. Is that what you're asking? Like, even if it's
Yeah, because I no, the reason I asked Stephen is because oftentimes when it comes to building, rebuilding relationships, oftentimes we have this tendency to lean towards, intimacy relationships, but this can apply to work relationships as well.
oh, you know what? There's no question. I grew up in a house that my mom, and as you Elix know, my mom very well, was the most loving, just the most loving, affectionate, and would do anything for her two boys. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. She really would, but she was an Irish woman who, if you screwed her once, there was no coming back. And as Elix can attest to, I'm not exaggerating. Like, if you did something to her that she perceived as, like, in that sort of subject matter or category that is either offensive or crossing a line or whatever the case may be, you're done. So that's how I grew up. I remember, I'm not going to get into stories, but in any case, so, I'm very, very glad that I'm able to process that and understand and realize that that is not a good way to live your life at all, because you're pulling yourself into the same situation you're giving somebody, right? And there's no way to trust anybody or so. And I think, as John's question was so relevant, because if you replace me in John's boat and say I'm the one that switched jobs, and I haven't really processed what I just explained to you about how I grew up, and that's how I watched my
Yes.
mom. Can you imagine what sort of behavior I would have with this new group of people if I again perceive that someone is saying something that is off the cuff, or something that I feel like it's like not complimentary to me? And I mean, without that trust factor, it can just completely change the trajectory of, like, my position, because if then I take offensive from that and go overboard with the way I react, and that ultimately that person who could be possibly a great employee leaves, then I'm left with that and filling that position. So, boy, it's no matter what you're dealing with, this trust factor, Elix, is so pertinent.
I totally agree. And by the way, that's my course, which is for companies, is about the neuroscience of fear trust, how to embrace difficult conversations in the workplace. So this certainly applies to our professional relationships as well. Now, as you know, Stephen, I'm super privileged because I trained with a neuroscientist, Judith Glaser, who you got the privilege to meet as well. And,
Yes.
and I learned so much from her neuroscience research. And to be honest with you, I learned that, what happens, the more you understand how our brain operates, the more you understand what happens when you feel safe versus when you feel threatened. What are the kinds of conversations that come from fear based versus the kind of conversations that come when there is trust presence? And two things that are important, and I'm gonna make them as translate them in lay terms as best as I can. But there's oxytocin and cortisol. Oxytocin is the trust hormone. It lowers fear, it increases bonding and supports collaboration. Cortisol, on the other hand, is the stress hormone that rises when trust is broken, and it keeps our brain in that survival mode. So, in other words, why this matters to all of us is because trust literally changes our brain chemistry. So when we trust, when we are able to prime our brain for trust, our brain opens up the door to love, to creativity, to cooperation. When you don't, our brain shuts down and it stays in that mode of fight, flee, protect, defense. So going back to what John said about, in the process of building trust in the workplace, because he just recently switched jobs, for somebody like John, or for anyone in thinking about their professional dynamics, trust is essential, because if you're able to find a way to build trust, to prime trust with yourself and with others, as I said, it increases creativity, it increases cooperation, it increases team collaboration, and ultimately that is going to lead to a more effective team. Now, if you don't do that, if you don't do what's necessary to prime for trust, and then people stay in that place of fear-based, protect and defend, that's what leads to a lot of conflict in the workplace. That's what leads to people not collaborating with one another, people not trusting one another, not supporting one another, and ultimately that can lead to not the most effective teamwork. Now, what you said, Stephen, about your mom, Claire, I think that's important for everyone, because there are things that we carry, all of us carry with us. So those are things that something happens and it may trigger us to go into that state of fight, flee, protect, defend, simply because what is happening now brings up perhaps something that happened, or something that your mom taught you, or an experience that back then led to you being hurt or you being upset. So your brain only knows to respond in that same way, and that's why it's important to have a sense of awareness so that you can learn to make those corrections in real time. Stephen, does that make sense? What are you like to add here?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely makes sense. And when I teach my courses, in one of them, when we're talking about, and because of you, the amygdala, I have a little section in that. I mean, I'm clearly nowhere the expert you are in everything that you do, because you're really amazing. But one of the statements I always say to my students is, if you allow fear to trap you in a cage, it absolutely will. So listen, if you're gonna give the opportunity to let your fear that's around you just pick you up and put you in a cage and close the door and keep you there, fear will take that advantage, or every single time will put you in there. And I mean, again, if you just think of that visual, how effective, no matter where you are, how effective can you be if you're in a cage? I mean, all I picture is like someone I don't like outside of the cage, and all I've got is my hands trying to come out of the bars and trying to just grab them or swat them or something. I mean, that visual just kind of shows you what fear does when you talk about that fight or flight part of your brain, Elix. It's really remarkable to think about.
Yeah, I listen. I totally agree with you, Stephen. Now, I want to just use our last couple of minutes before we take another break, Stephen, is I asked the question, what's one person in your life that you have complete trust with, and what makes that possible? Who would that? How would you answer that question, Stephen?
That's a really, really interesting question. And I think even if this was a year ago, I think I know I would answer differently. I
Mm,
think based on, over the even these past couple of weeks, and I think maybe we talked about this last week. There's just been a very big experience and transition for me. I don't think right now I could answer that with anybody. And I only say that because I'm still working on the 100% trust with my soul. And if I'm not there yet with me, I don't think I think I can pretend like I can like say anybody, but I don't think I'm not sure at this point I can actually say I like would fully 100% trust anybody, especially now going through what I just went through and realizing I really need to I need to get to that place of 100% being trusting my soul and making sure that I'm covering all angles of being authentic.
wow. And you'll be very proud to hear this, Stephen. For me, how I would answer that is I've learned through you to trust spirit. And what makes it possible is I've just learned to surrender. And I think I have said this to you earlier. Look, one thing I know for sure is that spirit doesn't have an agenda to harm any of us. So I that led me to just I have to trust. I have to surrender. And that would not have been possible without you leading me to that place.
And I mean, listen, I love that you said that, and I'm sure there's people out there listening that may say, how 32 years? Why wouldn't he say Elix? He's 32 years. They appear to have this amazing relationship, and all of that is absolutely true. But when you dig and you take inventory, just like you're saying about trusting spirit and what I just
Hmm.
said, when you're really growing and moving forward and having that authentic like sort of like goal there, I think that's when you really know you're in a good place. You're in a real good place.
I agree. And to be in a better place so that our GM doesn't scream at us, we need to take another commercial break. And as we take our final break, I'm inviting all of you to reflect on this. What would it look like to be the kind of person others can fully trust? That's a deep question. What would it look like to be the kind of person that others can fully trust? We're going to take a small break. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Helix. I'm your host, Coach Helix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
who is also my amazing husband. And today we're talking about one of the most important foundations of human connection, the neuroscience of trust, how to build or rebuild conversations. And so far, Stephen, I think we have had just such an incredible conversation about trust and why does it matter. So before we went into break, I actually invited people to think about the question is what would it look like to be that person that others fully trust? What would it take to be that? What would it take, Stephen Fio, to be that person?
I think it comes back to everything we've been talking about. Is I don't think you can ever get there unless you are 100% trusting of yourself
Yes.
and sort of live that authentic life. And when you asked that question, I thought, well, I mean, what would it look like? I mean, it would feel good. I know that I can't control what anybody else thinks of me or whether they trust me or not. If someone comes up to me after a conversation and says, you're somebody I can, I feel like I can 100% trust. Of course, I would love that, but I'm not sure that would change, like, what my life would feel like, because again, that's more of like it would be really nice, but it's more of an external perception of, again, trying to be in a place. Maybe, I don't know. I just think it would be a great place, but I don't think I would sort of focus on, like, I want to be that person so someone can trust me. I think it would be like, I want to focus on me being 100% authentic and then open the door for somebody to trust me.
I would agree with you on all of those counts. I would answer the question perhaps differently in some ways, the same way. When I think of that question, I also think about, what is one thing that I want our listeners to walk away with? And as I was thinking about that, I thought, well, actually, that is, if I do this, then that it's gonna lead me to being that person that others fully trust. So what does that mean? So I'm gonna, again, keep it in lay terms. The first thing is I I'm committed to being somebody that do what you say what you do, again and again and again and again. Be consistent. Like my actions align with what it is that I say I'm committed to. And I think when you show up that way, not only just for yourself, but when you show up that way for others, that actually leads to priming our brain for trust. The other one, Stephen, for me is listen deeply. I call it listen to connect, because listening deeply literally calms, not only our own nervous system, but it calms the other person's nervous system. Sometimes, I don't know when you've experienced, Stephen, I know I've experienced this often, and I've even said this to you. Sometimes when we're upset, we just want to be heard. We don't need to be told anything. We just need to experience being heard, being gotten by the other person. So for me, listening to connect to that other person's world, it's something that it's important. And the more I practice that distinction, that tool, the more that it leads me to build trust, not just for myself, but to build trust for others. And then the last one, Stephen, and you touched on this one, is really just being authentic. Just practice being fully authentic. Even if being authentic means being vulnerable, talking about what it is that you don't want or you don't like, or what are some of the fears that are in the background. I think being authentic just opens up not only our own pathway to trust, but it opens up somebody else's pathways to trust. What do you think, Stephen?
I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, I think that's a really good perception, and I think they go hand in hand, Alex. I think what we're saying, we're just saying in different ways, because I don't think those three things. I mean, I know the third one is being authentic, but I don't think the two former can actually happen unless you are being authentic. They go hand in hand. You
I
can't you
agree.
can't fully be in that place and then ultimately have someone feel like they really do trust you again if you're not authentic. And if you are, then everything falls into place, and it works.
I agree. Now let me read these. John from our live stream says, "Being able to truly listen without judgment." I love that. Without looking for opportunities to respond, with genuine curiosity and interest in the person in front of you, and then to always stay tuned to your word. I mean, John could not have said that better. And that reminds me that when I talk about the distinction of listening to connect, that distinction is really exactly how John described it. It's listening without judgment, it's listening without planning your response. It's coming from a place of wonder and curiosity and being really truly interested in what is happening to somebody else's world. Why it's meaningful? Because we have been conditioned to listen to respond. We've been conditioned to listen to reject. We've been conditioned to listen to verify our point of view or justify our point of view. And none of it is listening without judgment. None of that is listening with a genuine curiosity, about the person who is in front of you. And that's why that matters. So good job. I like to think, John, that you've picked up this from all the years that we've been working out together in the morning. So I'm going to take some credit for that. Just saying.
You know what I say to John?
Mm-hmm.
Hire this man. That's what I
That's
say.
right. I'm still
Just like
waiting.
Seinfeld.
Let me make a note. Make a note of that, Stephen. Make a note of that. We're going to see him later on. So anyway, Stephen, what else, as we come to close, what else can we give our listeners as a golden nugget to take away from your perspective, from that spirit perspective that is so one of a kind?
Yeah, again, I think we've said this many times. Both of us have said this many times when we're talking about all these conversations and trust and being authentic. It's so much of just being kind to yourself and kind to everybody else is just, it's the path to get you to where you want to be. So last night we were heading to dinner, and we're trying to get off the Cape, and there was a truck that at the last minute tried to move into a right lane, which he did, and the truck behind him, I mean, did not lay off their horn, just kept it going. And we weren't following that way. And as we went by, the car in front that cut in had his middle finger up. And I just thought, this is where we're at right now. This is just the anger, and just like it's crazy. And
Yes.
that energy in that one little experience is so powerful, and it's not energy you want around you. So just my golden nugget is just be kind to yourself again, and be kind to people. Just stop before you make comments. Stop before you judge people. Just start from your internally, from the love that you've got.
I love that. So, in closing, here's my closing thoughts. Today's conversation really has reminded all of us that trust is really the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Let me repeat that again, every meaningful relationship. And it is what makes us feel safe, what allows us to collaborate, and what opens the door to love. In neuroscience shows us that trust is not just an idea, it's biology, by the way. It changes our brain chemistry, it lowers fear, and it builds connection. And while trust cannot or can be broken in an instant, it can also be rebuilt through consistency, empathy, and courageous conversations. And perhaps maybe we want to highlight courageous conversations. So here's my challenge for you. Ask yourself, where in your life are you being invited to build or rebuild trust? Then take one more small step, because every act of integrity, every choice to listen deeply, every moment of keeping your word creates new pathways of safety in the brain. So, with that said, I want to thank you for joining Stephen and I today for this amazing show, for bringing your wisdom and heart to the conversation as always. And a reminder, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch up the replay by searching Coach Elix, Get a Grip with Coach Elix, anywhere where you play your favorite podcast. And with that said, Stephen, why don't you remind people where they can find you?
You can find me at stephenthemedium.com on my website and all social media. And a shout out to Mark, our producer, who is recuperating. We know that he is getting better and better, and it'll be hopefully soon that he gets back. But a huge thank you to everybody at the station, especially Jim, who's the station manager, who is producing the show, and Dave that fills in. They have been terrific.
Dave who? I don't even know Dave. I just know Jim.
Well, and next week, if we have somebody, it's the end of the month, so we switch, and I bring through the static here when you call in, and I get to connect you with your loved ones.
Beautiful. So there, you do not want to miss next week's show, Through the Static with Stephen the Medium. So with that said, have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and thank you for joining us, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.